Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Hi there, everybody. Just in. All organised, Fiona?
Certainly hope so.
How are you feeling now? You getting over your COVID?
Getting there, still a little bit hoarse, but
All right. Well, we'll try not to make too many demands on you.
no.
Fiona, can I just ask, have you got any information about Natalie's post? Has there been applicants or?
It's not out for advert yet. I think they're still talking to Hi about what the role will be.
Okay. Poor you're all on your own. Just to let you know, I did get in touch with that girl that I was talking about, that I thought might be interested, so you might get a phone call looking for information about it soon, but anyway, I've passed on the information, so.
Thanks.
Morning, folks.
Hi, Richard.
Morning.
Hi, Richard.
Morning, Isabel.
Morning, how's everyone?
Oh, yes, very well, thank you. We're just at an embarrassing point at the start of the meeting, waiting for everybody to come in. An interesting background, Michael.
Yes.
Psychedelic is the word.
It's one you can get from the team's listing of things. You can get bridges and all kinds of weird backgrounds, but it just means that you're not seeing the back of my kitchen.
Well, I just got the back of the conservatory or the kids' playground.
Yeah,
whichever you want to have.
Aye.
Oh, people are rolling in now. That's excellent. I've never seen Angela looking like that before.
How about that? Is that better? Morning.
I presume you're doing the admittance, Fiona.
Yes. All in.
It's a very encouraging sequence of clicks. What do you think? Are we almost ready to roll? Okay. Well, everybody, thank you. We'll make a start on the thing. Thank you all for coming along. It's a very encouraging, if slightly intimidating attendance today. It's good to see so many people gathered around our screen, and hopefully we can provide an entertaining hour or so to justify what we're seeking to do. We have apologies from 8, I believe, Fiona. That's thus far, anyway. And these being Scott, Amanda Wagstaff, Heather Taylor, Angela Eckerbaron, can't read my writing, Anne Fraser, Fiona Hampton, David McLeod, and Jason Beeston of Seafine. Anything else has come our way?
Not so far.
Okay. In which case, we will proceed on to the minutes of the last meeting, which have been circulated and which are very full and detailed. And for my own part, I'm grateful to see that I didn't have too many actions to actually undertake. And we just nip over the main headings. Apart from welcome apologies and so on the details, we had Fiona doing a PowerPoint on the SCP, Katie Matthews from Highland Sport and Leisure doing kits for all, and I still got to get in touch with Katie, I must admit. We had updates from the different subgroups, and I covered fuel and food. Audrey covered transport on behalf of Richard. Fiona, you did employability. Marianne provided a full report on the homes for people. Angela did child's plan and young people. Yvonne covered Pathfinder. And if I look onwards, Angela on resilience, David on the SACC activities, Ewan on Northwest 2045. And then we had the plenary matters, AOCB, and so on. So are we quite content with that as being a record of the last meeting? And if there's nobody shouting out, I'll take that as assent. Okay, we are quite content then, thank you. Now, next item we have, item 3, is a presentation from Ali Energy with Linda and Rachel. And Ali Energy, are you quite content to proceed, ladies? Ali Energy, as you know, have played the Calisthenics Development Trust the ultimate compliment of pinching one of their staff. And I think it just shows the value that the KOSTD provide to Sutherland as a whole. And they provide very, very suitable training for very, very competent staff. So Rachel and Linda, it's all yours if you wish to take away.
Thanks, Jim. So you've just got me today. Linda sends her apologies.
Okay.
She's got a family matter, so it's me. I will just share my screen. Can everyone see that okay?
Perfect.
Great. So yeah, as Jim said, I'm Rachel McNichol. I'm the Deputy Manager at Ali Energy, and I also lead the Affordable Warmth team. I'll be giving you a brief background to Ali Energy and the work we're doing just now in the Highland area. So we are a regional energy agency where we started over 20 years ago. We cover 3 main areas of work: affordable warmth, education and local energy projects, and quite often those projects overlap in one way or another. You won't be surprised to hear that this winter our main focus and the majority of our funding coming in is to support people in fuel poverty. So our affordable warmth circle in that Venn diagram should actually be much larger than the other 2 if we were to do it proportionally. We currently have 14 staff and we have another starting with us on Monday. 3 of those are now covering Highland area. So we have 1 person down in Fort William, 1 person starting on Monday who's in Inverness, and then of course we have Natalie, who we've pinched, who's up your way, and she has settled into the team brilliantly. I've been very impressed with her, and she's hopefully going to be taking on some of her own clients in the next week or 2. So we've been really, really pleased with her. So as I said, we've been working in Argyll Butte for over 20 years, and then about 18 months ago we moved into the Lochaber area, and then at the end of last year we received funding from Highland Council to extend our service to their tenants across the Highland region. So we are used to working in a remote and rural area with a population that's spread out. and it's very different from working in the central belt. So we quite often report back and lobby for extra support in rural areas because it is very, very different in many aspects. This is a graphic from Energy Action Scotland, which is over a year ago they done this, and that was before all the price increases last year. So it'll be no surprise that the darker blue areas are the west and north and the islands in Scotland, and everyone is forecasting that over 50% now of people in those areas are in fuel poverty. I'm sure we've all in this room been worried at some point about the bills going up for ourselves. So Linda's been doing some work around the different costs of heating. So for oil, you'll know that there's the alternative fuel payment that has been launched just this week for people on alternative fuels that are off the gas grid. There's support there. There's other support that we can access through the Fuel Bank Foundation for people that rely on bulk heating fuels like oil, coal, LPG, wood. So there is a lot of support out there for solid fuel, but actually when you look at the sums, oil and gas are very similar cost-wise per kilowatt hour. When you compare that to electricity, it's 3 times as much. So people in electric storage heaters or electric heating are paying far more than people on gas as well as oil and LPG. So the work that we are doing is trying to target the people that are on expensive electric heating, who are also in low income and also have a greater need for heat. And that also includes people on prepayment meters who will be at extreme risk if they can't afford to keep their meters topped up. Some more sums here. So you will have all heard and read the headlines last year that the average bill was going to be £2,500. That was modelled on a property with mains gas, most likely in the south of England, where it's a lot warmer, drier and lighter throughout the year. So even a gas property in Scotland is going to cost more than the £2,500. If you compare that, the same usage as suggested by Ofgem, if you compare that with an electric storage heating property and a total heat, total control tariff, you're up to nearly £4,500, and then up even further if you're on a standard electric. So that's why we want to target these people that have electric heating, because they are paying far more and they're not getting the extra support to help them fight the increase in prices. Again, a graphic to show that, so there has been government support, so everybody in this room will have likely have got the £400 energy bill support scheme regardless of need. So we've all been helped with the £400, but it's not been equitable because there's still people suffering that £400 has made a very, very small difference, whereas to other people that £400 is going to go a lot longer. For instance, if they're down in England with gas central heating, that £400 is going to last very long. Somebody with electric storage heating up in the north of Scotland, you're talking weeks. You know, it's really, really not good enough. So the lived experience of fuel poverty, these are all instances that we've seen over the years that we've been working with people struggling to keep warm at home. You'll see that there's been a increase in the amount of warm spaces that have been popped up across communities over the winter. That's not a new thing, as for us to see people seeking warm spaces outside of the home for free. We've had lots of clients that told us they spend all day in the library, they go to the pub all day. They're not in the pub drinking all day, they're in the pub with a coffee or a can of Coke because it's warmer than being at home. It's nothing to do with an alcohol problem. They're meeting friends and family outside of their home because they're embarrassed to invite them to their own home, so they're then becoming very isolated if they're not socialising. We've had people tell us that they use their free bus pass to go on a long bus journey just to get outside of their home and be nice and cosy on the bus. We've had people who really struggled during lockdown, especially when they were homeschooling, because they knew their kids weren't in school getting a hot lunch. And then we've had people saying that they're so grateful for grandparents taking children at the weekends and things because they know they'll be warmer and getting warm food. Of course, living in rural Scotland, it's not always easy just to nip along to the library or along to the local pub. So there are a huge number of people who are having to stay at home and try and stay warm. So we're seeing a huge increase in people that are living in one room. because it's too expensive to heat the whole house. We're seeing a lot more people who are finding that they're just staying in bed all day because it's the only place they feel warm. We've had a huge increase in people that have told us they're cutting back on how much they're cooking, how much they're washing, and how much they're doing laundry. So that's a huge impact on people's health, their mental well-being, a huge factor on their life and their quality of life as well. So we've always talked about people having to choose between heating or eating, but this winter it's really between starving and freezing because things are so dire. So there has been help, as I mentioned, the Energy Bill Support Scheme, so that comes to an end this month. There are lots of whispers and rumours about what's to come. The 1st of April, there's a fund, the Home Heating Support Fund, which I'll touch on later. At the website for the applications went down yesterday and our team went into a panic. And we've since found out that they are now closed for new applications while they await news on what's to come next. So we're all waiting very nervously because that has been a huge lifeline for people that we're supporting. These other ones, the alternative fuel payment, the winter fuel payment, the winter heating payment, the warm home discount, I won't go into the details about that, but I will share the slides so that you can have a read yourself. So our energy advice service for Highland Council tenants, the way that works is at the moment we're receiving referrals from Highland Council staff. The reason we've started like that is because we were still recruiting our advisors to work in the area, and it also helps us manage demand. Highland Council have 15,000 tenants across Highland, and we didn't want our phone number going out and then been inundated with calls that we couldn't deal with. So we're trying to do it in a phased process, and maybe in the next month or two we might look to be doing some more promotion and accept referrals from out with the council. In the first instance, everyone's offered a telephone call to collect information on their property, on their circumstances and on their needs. That then gives the advisors a better understanding of their circumstances and their eligibility for the different schemes that we can apply to for financial support and the different advice that they need for their energy use in the home. We will offer house visits if they're required, so some clients really need face-to-face support. They struggle to communicate over the phone, or they struggle to take in information. If they have a really technical issue, it's better to be in the property with them to actually show them how to read their meter or how to use their heating controls. And we also sometimes have to go out to visit if we have to take photographic evidence of meters when we're liaising with suppliers, or if we need evidence of benefit entitlement or income when we're making applications. So it's a hybrid approach we're using, and that started off the back of lockdown restrictions, where we were completely had to change the way we worked in Argyll and Bute and moved completely to a telephone service, and we actually found it was a lot more efficient because we could triage clients and deal with people over the phone quicker that were capable of doing that, and then concentrate more time and resource on visiting the people in home that needed that face-to-face support. So and after that first visit, we do then a lot of follow-up work over the telephone, email and or letter. Some clients can be dealt with in a couple of weeks, others can be months. It depends on the issues, it depends on funds we're applying to, it depends if we're having to speak to suppliers on their behalf. Unfortunately, we do have fortunately, we do have numbers, direct numbers that are meant to get us through to customer agents at suppliers quicker than customers. Unfortunately, they're not always quick as we would like. We do spend a huge amount of time on hold waiting for suppliers. At the moment, our main focus is crisis intervention. A lot of our inquiries coming in are from people who are can't pay their bills, can't top their meter up, are getting hounded for energy debt. So our work at the moment is crisis intervention, and then we'll follow up with energy advice. But we are finding the people we're working with are probably the most energy savvy. They know exactly how much it costs to put a washing on, and some of them aren't even turning their heating on. So it can be quite patronising to start talking about temperatures and turning dials down when they can't afford to even put their heating on. And then following on from that, we like to offer a holistic approach. So we quite often will refer people on to other support, and we feel quite privileged if somebody's opened up to us about their life and their circumstances, that we should be able to help them with anything else that they have issues with. So that might involve referring them to Citizens Advice Bureau if they have debt support or other worries. Referring to carer groups if they have a caring role that's they're not receiving support for. We work a lot with local community food organisations for people that are struggling to buy food. So we really want to build up a network of people and organisations that we can refer people onto, which in Argyll and Bute, we've been doing that over 20 years, so we have a really good resource of people we can refer to, and we're still working on that for Highland. So if anyone wants to get in touch and that we can work with, please do get in touch, or if you want to tell us about people we should be talking to, then I'd welcome those details. So some of the things that we do with clients, we can offer advice on using appliances and how to heat their home more efficiently. We can help them to understand their bills. We can access schemes for funding for replacement white goods, or if they don't have those items at all. We do a lot of work to help people understand their meter, understand the importance of meter readings and accurate bills. We used to do a lot of tariff checks, although recently that's not been happening, but I think that is going to come back later in the year when the market's more competitive. We also we assess people's eligibility for the Warm Home Discount and help them to apply for that. And we also help people register for the Priority Service Register. So that is a register for people who might need extra help during a power cut, if they rely on electrical medical equipment, or they might need additional support when communicating. Or if there's a child under 5, we can register them. There's a whole list of different criteria, so that the suppliers can give people a heads up and offer extra support if there's going to be planned works on the line, or if there is indeed a power cut. The other bits and pieces we do for clients, we can help them. Sorry, apologies, I've just realised that's in twice there. We can help people identify the causes of their if they have dampness and condensation. That's very hard to do over the phone, and that's one of the downsides of working with a telephone service, is we can only work with what people are telling us. Whereas when we go into somebody's house, we quite often we'll go into somebody's house to talk about one thing, but just by looking about we can pick up other things. So there are pros and cons to house visits and telephone service, but we just try to do what we can, best we can. We also help people if they have a complaint with a supplier. We can help them through the complaints process and then take it to the Ombudsman, Energy Ombudsman. I have to be honest though and say the cases we've taken to the Ombudsman haven't been as successful as we would have liked. A lot of people think the Energy Ombudsman have a magic wand that's going to kick the suppliers into shape. And we have to say we've not been overly impressed with what the results have been recently, which is really disheartening when the work has gone into that. We also, when we have funds available, we provide what we call cosy kits. So these are bags with hot water bottles, blankets, thermal socks. Sometimes we have in there light bulbs, night light torches that are plugged in. So when there is a power cut, there's there a charged torch ready to use. Other things we've had are cold alarms. And again, we're always looking for any feedback on those items or any suggestions of any other items you think we should be looking at. We can see if we can work that into the available budget at the time. So some of the crisis intervention funds that we are accessing at the moment for clients for immediate financial gain, the main one is the Fuel Bank Foundation. So that is, we're now registered, well, we've been registered for a number of years now to access fuel vouchers. And in the winter, they're worth £49, and in the summer, they go down to £30. And that's for people on prepayment meters who are about to go off supply or are already off supply with no means to top up. There are limits to how many vouchers we can access, and it's normally 3 within 6 months. We do have the authority to override the system and access more and more within a time frame if we have a good justification. So for an example, if somebody had had a hospital stay, came home from hospital and found that their meters, the standing charge in that meter has obviously been building up, so they would have to clear that standing charge build up before they actually had credit. So in those cases, we would likely award 2 vouchers to help clear the standing charge and then let them have some credit so they could have the heating on straight away. We've also just in the last couple of weeks registered with British Gas Energy Trust to access vouchers through their scheme, and that provides up to 3 £49 vouchers, and that's for anyone on a low income. They don't need to be in crisis, that they're just about to go off supply. So we're just actually just waiting for our login details for the portal for that. So hopefully next week we can start accessing that, and that will be really good for us because we have helped a lot of people over the winter who have already used that 3 and 6 months from the Fuel Bank Foundation and are still coming back to us because they're still struggling. So that'll be good that we can now tap into that fund as well. We have a lot of people who either don't have cookers, washing machines, fridge, freezers, or have them but are broken beyond repair. So there are a couple of funds we can apply to. The main ones we're using at the moment are Glasspool Trust, and the other one is the Children in Need Emergency Essentials Fund. And the Children in Need Fund also has at the moment a winter support fund, which has smaller kitchen items and household items to help reduce energy costs. And that has been really successful. That is of course only for families with children or young adults under the age of 18. So there is a limit, but I have to say over the last 2 weeks that we have been applying, we've been really impressed with the service that they offer. It's a quick turnaround and we've already had items delivered and installed for our clients we've applied to. So we hope that continues. The referrals process for Highland Council. So Highland Council have this referral form that they fill out with their tenants, and the questions on here help us triage our contacts and then gives us a conversation starter with the client, because quite often when you phone up and say you're from Ali Energy, you get the phone hung up on you. So it's good to be able to say who's referred them, what the issues were you've discussed, so that they know that it is a genuine call. And it helps us if we need to go and look at any eligibility or any other information before we make the call, so we're best prepared for that first conversation. So progress to date. We've had lots of discussions with various Highland Council staff within different teams. We've presented to a lot of different teams and team meetings. We're now sharing a lot of common issues that we're finding. The council staff are sharing issues they're finding are being reported by their tenants, and then we are feeding back on the issues that we are finding as well. We're working with Highland Council on their tenant handover pack. So they have handover packs for advice on how to use the heating systems, and they've asked us to take a look over that and try and simplify it. One example was the air source heat pump, and their kind of quick guide was 16 pages, so we're going to try and bring that down so it's a much easier and simpler resource for people to use to better understand their heating system and how to use it efficiently. We have a point of contact for any upgrade inquiries, so we quite often will have tenants moaning to us, and this isn't just Highland Council, it's across all social housing and local authority housing. We'll have tenants complaining about insulation and heating. We now have somebody we can go and speak to say what has been done in this property and what is due to be, what's scheduled in for upgrades, and then we can better mediate between the council and the tenant. And something we'd noticed was people moving into new tenancies and also getting new heating systems were being referred straight over to us. But often we need to be able to we need to know how the client's using that heating system over a period of at least a month. So we have agreed with them that they'll wait and refer after 6 months, unless they already know there are known issues with that tenant and they need immediate support. But it's best practice to have a few months of heating use in that property before we step in and can advise on it. The referrals in, So we started very slow, as you can imagine, back in November, and we're up to, in February, we had 58 referrals. And when I checked last night, we'd already had 6 in the first 2 days of March. So I'm hoping that because we have been going to all these team meetings and doing these presentations, that we're equipping the people on the ground working with tenants better to better understand what we're capable of and what we can do for their tenants. So I expect that number to rise again in March. The client gains that we have achieved so far, so the Home Heating Support Fund, that's the fund I mentioned earlier that has just closed, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen next. We did manage to get 10 successful applications with, a total award of just over £7,000, and we have 3 awaiting outcomes for that. The other one, the Fuel Bank Foundation energy vouchers, we are waiting on an update on the report. They've changed the way they report on that, so we're waiting on an update on that so then we can better report on the Highland figures. And just to mention, down in Lochaber, the Sonart Development Trust had got in touch with us because they had some community benefit funding from their hydro scheme, and they have worked up a scheme with us that we can support people with food and for fuel, and they within their catchment area. So we're working with them. So it was just to highlight that if there are any community benefit funds or anything else like that in the Sutherland area, we are doing that in other areas for other organisations. So feel free to get in touch and we can discuss how we can help you, because we are working with probably the most vulnerable people in communities. So if we're already working with them, we have that connection and we can help you get the funds to them. So something else we've done is we looked at the housing stock data we had from Highland Council, and as I explained earlier, we're trying to concentrate on properties with electric storage heating or electric heating, and we found that Sutherland had the highest percentage of properties within that area that had electric storage heating and room heaters. So we are urging Highland Council to concentrate in the Sutherland area to begin with, so we can reach those people. Does anyone have any questions just now? I can't see if anyone's got their hand up, so maybe Fiona can tell me.
Hello, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm Phil Tomlin from Highland Council. Are you only taking referrals for Highland Council tenants, or is it do you take anybody?
At the moment, it's Highland Council that are funding this service, and it's only to their tenants.
I think Jane also had a question.
Yes, I was wondering if you were doing anything about insulating homes at all, because I couldn't see sorry, in the presentation.
So because we're working only with Highland Council tenants, it's Highland Council are responsible for the physical upgrades of the property. In our Argyll and Bute and Lochaber, where we're working with private households, we are making checking eligibility and making referrals into the government funded insulation schemes. But for the Highland Council tenants, all insulation inquiries we can advise, but any actual physical measures have to be done by the council.
Thank you.
I think that's everybody at the moment.
Okay, I'll just stop sharing.
Jim,
Okay,
are you
well,
in?
thank you.
You're there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rachel. I've had bits of faults here, so I've been stuck out there for a little while and back in again. But I got almost everything there by a minute I think I missed out on. So hopefully I'll watch the screen carefully. Hopefully my link will carry on. So thank you very much, Rachel. That was clear, concise, very informative, very sobering. I particularly picked up on the iniquitous price of electricity, especially for those in total heat, total control. We know all about fuel poverty to a great extent, but it's particularly sobering the way you went through your list there, and the starving versus freezing option is perhaps a way I've never heard it expressed before. One thing it does strike me, I know there are questions coming, but you're only working with tenants at the moment, and I think you suggested you were going to work on a much wider scale.
Well, so for when I was explaining about expanding, I was meaning of taking referrals for Highland Council tenants. So at the moment, we're only funded to work with Highland Council tenants, but of course, there's lots of work in the background trying to secure funding so that we can open it up to everybody. And that's the other reason why we're only accepting referrals and promoting it through Highland Council, because we don't want to be turning people away. If word gets out that we have this service, and then we have lots of people phoning us, and if they're not Highland Council tenants, we can't work with them. We don't want to go off to a bad start, so that's why we're trying to phase it, and then we'll see what comes in the future.
I look forward to this future coming forward as much as possible, because it'd be a third dimension that we could actually put to our clients, our residents, along with the SACC team and our CAB team with Joan and Peter. So it'd be a third dimension to add to the support that we can provide. So I think I look forward to working much more closely together as we proceed. Any further questions for Rachel, please? And if anybody wants to come in, please show a hand. I'm not seeing any hands at the moment. No. Okay, I think I look forward to a much deeper relationship, Rachel, as we move forward, and hopefully you can get funding to extend your service beyond council tenants. Well, that's valuable in itself. Richard?
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That was really interesting, Rachel. Thank you for that. Really enjoyed. Well, enjoy for the wrong word, but it was very informative, so I appreciate that. Thank you. One question I have is: we know that people on prepayment meters are suffering the most, and are the only people that can actually effectively cut themselves off because they don't have money to pay for their fuel. Do you do any lobbying at all? Because I know of certain customers who would fit the criteria of working paying by direct debit, but yet the power companies are refusing to convert them. Do you do any lobbying with the power companies to increase the number of people who are not on prepayment meters?
So we are members of the Highland and Islands Housing Association's Affordable Warmth Group, or HEHO for short, and they have a rep there from the Scottish Federation of Housing Associations, who now have a line of communication with Ofgem about meter issues, of which there are many, and they are lobbying them for that. So yeah, it's not, there are lots of meter issues, prepayment, smart meter, traditional meters getting switched over to modern credit meters. So yeah, the Cassandra SFHA is taking that to Ofgem on our behalf.
Great, thank you.
I noticed too a recent press report in which Di Alexander of HEHO was giving evidence to the Scottish Affairs Committee. So I think it was originally going to be done via Professor Davy Bell, but I think Di got a direct audience himself, though I'd have to confirm that with him. Any other questions for Rachel? In which case, I can only thank you very much, Rachel, and look forward to working with you more closely in the future.
Thanks, Jim.
It's great work that you're doing. Okay, you're very welcome to stick around, but I understand you'll be very busy.
I'll try and stick around for as long as I can.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, item 4, we have got Peter from East and Central Southern Citizens Advice Bureau. Peter, you're very welcome to come in now and say what you think we should know.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'll just share my screen so that you can see it. And,
yes.
Thank you very much for the introduction.
Because any help, I've never managed to share a screen in my life, so I can't help at this point.
No, I think I might ask Fiona, because I've forwarded it on to Fiona, if you could insert and share the screen,
I'll
that
do
would
that
be
for you now.
much appreciated.
Give me a moment.
Okay, you should hopefully be able to see the screen.
Hasn't come my way yet,
Has it not?
but my link has been dodgy this morning.
I'll share it here.
Thank you, Fiona. It's obviously not working from my end.
That's it now.
Super, great. Thanks ever so much. So thank you for inviting me to talk to you. You've asked me to just share a few of the stats to do with the challenges of cost of living that we're currently facing in our area and nationally. And if you could just move the slide on one for me, please. Super, thank you ever so much. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of context about us for people who may not be familiar. I'm aware that there are people on the meeting who are aware of what we're about and who we are. But just to let you know that obviously Citizens Advice Scotland, we are an umbrella organisation for all Citizens Advice Bureau in Scotland. Each CAB is an independent charity, meaning we have our own governing body and governing board of directors who serve our own specific area and have our own sources of funding that we seek to raise to serve our community. Our area of operation is East and Central Sutherland, and there's a separate bureau for North and West Sutherland. And anyone in our operation is welcome to use our services, regardless of age, income, gender, or personal circumstances. If you're able to move me on one, Fiona, that would be grand. So just some stats. We've served and had 3,844 enquiries between February 22 and January 23. 353 of these clients were new to the service, so they were touching our services for the first time. With 776 clients, and we've dealt with 1,160 cases. 67% of our clients are aged 45 and over, and around 65% of our clients identify as having a disability. I think it would be useful to say that people out of work are more likely to need food insecurity advice. What we are seeing is obviously council tenants are more likely to need utilities and insecurity advice, and that obviously dovetails into the presentation that that we've just heard from Rachel at Ali Energy. There is a big crossover between energy advice and food insecurity, and again, those themes came out of the presentation we've just heard. And people who are unable to work are more likely to seek advice around risk to income. And what we are seeing is people in full-time work are more likely to need help with debts like credit cards and such like. And single non-pensioner households are more likely to need crisis support. We are seeing links between consumer debt and universal credit, and obviously that increased as the reduction after COVID came into play with universal credit. If you could move on to the next slide, that would be super, Fiona. So we are, in terms of seeing a huge increase in benefits advice being sought from the Bureau, increasing from 1,200 to nearly 1,500, which is a 23.5% increase. That's driven because people are looking to see if they can maximise their income. They're seeing what benefits they may be missing out on. Obviously, publicity that's been generated both in the local and national media are highlighting the needs of people to make sure they're getting all they're entitled to, and obviously that's having a knock-on effect on enquiries into the Bureau. And on every point of contact into the Bureau, we're offering a benefits check to make sure that clients are getting all that they're entitled to. What we've seen, and again, this follows through like a golden thread from the presentation from Rachel at Ali Energy, in terms of utility inquiries, we've seen a huge increase from 175 to 311. a 44% increase in kind of contacts into the Bureau, and obviously that's being driven by the significant increases in the cost of energy. As pointed out by Rachel, we pay in our area one of the highest kilowatt per unit costs in the whole of the United Kingdom. We suffer from challenging housing stock, both in terms of private and direct owner-occupied property, in terms of the construction of the property. Stone construction, which makes it harder to heat and harder to insulate, and obviously some of the social housing stock suffers from the challenges of poor insulation, and kind of making it a challenge for people who are living in social housing to adequately heat the homes, as well as to be able to afford to heat the homes. So that's driven the huge increase in utilities. Obviously, combined with that, if people are not entitled to any benefit increases, they're looking at what else they can do to maximise their income, both in terms of how we can help them cut the costs through, making sure they're on the most affordable and the best value packages, but also looking for charitable and financial support. And we've seen an increase of 31% in that, from 199 to 290. If you could move a slide on, please, Fiona, that would be appreciated. So our top 3 service areas to our service, by no surprise in terms of what I've just covered off, were benefits advice, which has seen 49% of the people who touch our service, clients who touch our service, seeking benefits advice. Utilities is the next area, and then financial and charitable support. And what we have seen is a noticeable shift historically from the top 3 areas, which used to be benefits, debt and housing. Obviously benefits still feature there, but debt and housing, whilst they still feature, obviously are not in the top 3. Part of that has been driven by the steps that Scottish Government and UK Government have put in place in terms of tenancies and the safeguards to tenants, but also some of the policies that have been introduced in terms of supporting people who are in debt, and longer periods of time to support people to get those debts and seek help to get those debts resolved and sorted, and the safeguards that have been put in place. So we have seen a shift, as this slide shows, but obviously debt and housing still feature very highly in terms of the categories of support that we're supporting our clients within our area in. Next slide, please, Fiona. Obviously, additional support. Obviously, when the client comes into the Bureau, we look as a whole package, a holistic package of support around people. So we've seen 87 inquiries for charitable support. We've seen inquiries for food banks, and we act as a point of contact for food parcels, but we also work closely with local partners in our area, such as Sutherland Care Forum and other food share resources within our locality. We've seen 33 inquiries with regards to cost of living payments, 20 inquiries for energy efficient measures, and obviously really pleased that Ali Energy is coming into our area, and hope that we can work in partnership with them. We very much work in partnership with Home Energy Scotland, and certainly I think in terms of what Ali Energy is bringing into our area to further support the work that us and other partners are doing, I think will have a big impact on our communities. We've also seen people looking for improvement grants in owner-occupied properties to help them make their homes more insulated, to reduce the cost, both in terms of energy use and cost in terms of financial, in order for them to kind of make savings within their household. Next slide, please, Fiona. So in terms of utility related support, and again dovetails into the previous presentation, we've seen 293 inquiries related to fuel, electricity, gas and coal and oil. 100 of these related to billing and meter reading. I think it's really important to point out we are having significant challenges with meters and meter reading, and it's something that we have escalated. We've escalated to Member of Parliament and other members with regards to there isn't the engineers within our area. We had an example where somebody was waiting for 2 years for a prepayment meter to be fitted. It's putting people into further hardship. It's increasing the debts, and the energy companies seem to be stuck in treacle in terms of their progression of putting meters into people's homes who want and are asking for meters. So it is a real issue in our area. It seems to be a postcode lottery, because I don't think that this would be happening if we were in central belts or other parts of Scotland. So we do seem in the north to suffer significantly because of the lack of availability of engineers. We dealt with 46 queries with regards to complaints and redress, and we dealt with 33 inquiries with regards to the warm home discount, and as I've just said, with regards to prepayment meters. And obviously there is significant challenges around billing, and we've supported 28 people with regards to billing related charges. Next slide, please, Fiona. So just to give you a little bit, you've had the local perspective, and I thought it would be useful just for you to have a little look at the national perspective from CAB, and if it would be helpful, I can provide some more information and statistics that will kind of back up what we're seeing locally across the national picture. So grants and benefits in terms of people seeking help to pay energy bills across Scotland has gone up 194%, help with bills 156%, people struggling to pay for energy, which kind of heat or eat, or as Rachel said, I think it was starve or warmth, and obviously people struggling with living costs of 146%, people who can't afford to top up the prepayment meter, 78%, people checking to see are they getting the right benefits, what benefits can I access, what support can I access, 64%, food banks and other crisis help, 39%, and extra support from energy suppliers, 23%. Next slide, please, Fiona. So just to kind of give you a little flavour of how we've been able to help people, and this is just in our locality here in East and Central Sutherland in the last 11 months. Client financial gain within that period has been £1.3 million secured for clients through areas such as claiming benefits to which they're entitled, reducing debts, getting debts written off, helping them with payment plans, accessible or accessing charitable support, reducing outgoings and bills, so increasing and maximising people's income, helping people with regards to their employment entitlements, supporting people with consumer cases, home accessibility, heating systems and improvements. So you'll see for this, in terms of the average that we've been able to support people, has been £1,675 better off as a result of accessing the service here in our communities. Next slide, please, Fiona. So in summary, obviously the number of clients, contacts and enquiries has increased from the previous 12 months. The increase in the top 3 advice areas are a reflection of the cost of living crisis and spiralling energy costs. And we're not thinking that that will change, certainly in the near future. Signposting is critical in getting the right support for individuals, as can be seen from the CFG, in terms of what we've been able to support clients to bring in, and that's us signposting to others and being aware of other services as much as people signposting in to our service here, in order to focus on individuals within our community that need our help and support in this very challenging cost of living crisis that we are living with at the moment. that's all from me, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. I would also say that the value of the CAB system cannot be overstated at this time, and the work you do is tremendous. And also, I greatly commend the development partnership with Ali Energy. I think that's a very positive way forward, and as I said earlier, a different dimension to what we're trying to do. I was, from my own point of view, I hope that, I believe that the staffing situation at the Eastern Central CAB is now fully taken care of and back to full strength again.
Yes, there has been a manager appointed that is due to start and commence in the Bureau at the beginning of April.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Peter, please, from around the screen? Just show a hand and you'll get a chance to have your say. It was a very detailed, informative presentation, Peter, and I presume you'll make it available for circulation around the partnership group, please.
Yes, and if you want as well, if it would be helpful, I can give you some national flavours as well. But obviously, I would imagine that kind of the local flavour and the local stats obviously would be more of benefit in terms of to the people who are within this group. But I'm happy to share some national perspectives as well.
Yeah. Okay, doc. Thank you very much. That'd be very helpful too.
No problem.
Are we at a point then? No questions coming forward. Then perhaps we can indeed move on to the next item. Fiona, by the way, my link is particularly fragile this morning, so if you see me freeze and fade, please step in and take over as I try and get sorted out again, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, no questions for Peter. I will move on to item 5, in which are the subgroup updates. And I start with these have been previously circulated by Fiona. And looking at food and fuel, first of all, I provided a summary under both groups, and I tend to sort of merge the two more and more as things progress at the moment. And I think as regards fuel, we're looking at a developing situation as we move into April, and just wait and see what's happening. We are really passive and reactive rather than being proactive at this point. And again, I can only say that our meetings are always well attended thanks to Teams. And I particularly welcome the use of voucher systems around the county by local community groups to bring in our local traders and suppliers and retailers into the scheme of things. And a confession for myself, there's a section on local food growing which I've still got to finalise and bring forward. In fuel, and again, perhaps linking back to food again, we have the Westminster support money of 50,000 has been fully and very quickly distributed. We now wait for the second phase to come forward. Hopefully that'll be shortly, though VGS, I believe, are actually collating the audit trail for that to allow it to proceed. I had our seminar with Changeworks recently. They are developing the report on fuel poverty in the area, and we hope to see that report coming forward very soon. And again, we just wait to see what's happening in as April dawns, and we just see what is in the pipeline for us as regards energy support schemes again. Any questions I could handle at the moment? Though I think most of the things I'm talking about have already been covered in much better detail by Ali Energy and by Peter of CAB. Richard, anything to add to your transport report?
Not really, Jim. I think things are moving. I'm not expecting anything to happen immediately, but if we get this consultation carried out first of all, then we will be able to understand exactly what the need is, and then we can start moving on from there. So it's positive progress. We've got some funding, which is really good, and once we get that consultation over done with them, we can fully understand exactly what we need to do. So yeah, I'm quite positive about it. I'm glad to see you making some progress, rather than just having meetings talking about progress, which is good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And certainly it's a topic that came up at Edinburgh Community Council last night with the loss of the Saturday bus, and I know Michael might add more to that. And I think that what you're actually proposing and what we're implementing now is much needed to try and integrate the whole transport system and actually define. I came back from Saturday morning from Inverness on the X25 intergalactic strato cruiser, and it was an adventure. And the timetable that I had downloaded from the website was not the timetable I saw in Inverness transport station when I arrived there. So yeah, I think that there's work to be done to collate all the information and actually have a single point of contact, and what you're doing is to be commended. Michael, do you want to come in? Sorry.
Yes, Jim, it was just as you were saying about the Saturday bus, it looks as though it's now dead in the water, which is a shame, but we've done everything possible to whip up as much support as we could in it. So really, yeah, that's about it.
Well, I commend you for the work you did in trying to get it running. There's something up and running due to your efforts. And
yeah, thank you.
If there are no customers, then what can we do? They can't economically transport empty space around the buses.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
What I could say though, Jim, was the very excellent bus that comes from Durness and goes to Inverness. That seems to be getting people on board. Yeah.
So it's linking the community efforts with the official transport providers is I think one of the kind of aims that we have. And I think, again, Richard, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a first-class move to try and integrate the transport services throughout the county.
Yeah, anybody? Just to say, Jim, what we want to do is make sure that we don't displace anything, but we actually enhance it. So we work with existing providers to see what we can do to help them. And then where there is no existing provision, then we look at what we can do to provide provision. I'm particularly keen to get patient transport under control and get people access to health clinics and such like. So, and of course, another big issue for me is getting kids back and forth from after school clubs and such like. It's a big issue around November, getting back and forth to Liverpool, and there are other issues in Far. And it's the same problems in Galway as well, and Dornoch, I'm sure. But we just need to focus on that, make sure that kids have access to services, which is really important.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I totally endorse that. Anybody able to pick up on employability?
Hi, Jim. I'm here. Heather here.
Hi, Heather.
So, yeah, just as the update stated, we did have our last meeting last week and had a very useful presentation from Trudy from Caithness Chamber around the Recruit North Highland website that's going to be getting a bit of work done on it and what they're going to be able to offer through that. But it's a very good website, and as much as it really kind of explains the whole region of Caithness and Sutherland. And there's a lot of information for potential employees that would like to come up to the area. Also looking at having some reciprocal links in the website, so links to other kind of job sites such as the DWP one and things like that within that, so that it could look at the whole level of if someone wants to apply for one of the jobs that's actually on the website, there might be other websites attached for family to look at for jobs for themselves, etc. Yeah, and obviously we have a jobs fair at the end of the month, I think, at KLB, Kinlochbervie High School. So I'm not entirely, I don't know, to be honest, the level of uptake for employers and whatnot around that. I've only kind of just heard about it.
Okay, one thing for myself, I very much welcome the idea of providing an information service for advertising jobs across families. It's something that Kate Kenmure brought up, and the ability for for somebody coming in to look at a job in the NHS system to actually be able to instantly find out just what other related jobs there may be for partners or relations. And I think that's a very positive way forward. So I welcome that. So thank you for that. Richard?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for that, Heather. I'm well aware of the issue that people some small businesses are having with recruiting staff. I was at the Helensville Community Council meeting last night, and local businesses there are really struggling to recruit. I'm not quite sure. Are we working with a situation of full employment, or are we just, or is this people not wanting particular types of jobs? I'm not quite sure. Have you got any information you can give us on that? Because I know that hotels have struggled, restaurants struggle, shops and other premises across the area are struggling with employing people. So can you give us? I mean, having the job fairs is great, but what are we doing to link up the businesses? And get the people who are there and available for work into employment? Thanks.
I think there's a number of different things. There are childcare, there are transport issues. There's a number of different factors, I think, going on here. It's not that, as far as I'm aware, there is population out there to take up the jobs, but it might be that they just can't. I think there's too many factors to be able to say why that's not happening. How we manage that, or how we kind of try and make that better, I'm not entirely sure. We have, I mean, there's Caithness jobs and how to get them, which I know is not Sutherland, but there's also the Sutherland Facebook pages where a number of people are putting jobs on there. There's also a Highlands wide one where people who are coming to the area actually can posting on and saying that they're coming and are looking for work. There is next week, I believe, an over 50s jobs fair in Inverness, and funnily enough, at a Peace Partnership meeting that I held yesterday, we had a lot of discussion around whether or not that would be something that would be possible to do for Caithness and Sutherland. So that's something that we're kind of going to go and look into. I think there are other 50+ job fairs being looked at, but I don't know whether that is going to be happening. So I'm going to go and speak to someone at DWP around that. Mark was on the call yesterday and contacted Fiona Webster from the employability team because it's been the one in Inverness and the others have been run in conjunction between the Highland employability team and DWP. She wasn't aware of one, but it was something they were willing to look at. So I'm going to go off and do a bit around that, talking to DWP and see what we can't look at. Now, also the other thing is, do we look at one in Sutherland and one in Caithness, or do we look at one that's kind of perhaps in the middle of the two? Because the demographic is there. There are probably spoke yesterday as well about underemployment, and David, actually, who's on the call, came up with the fact that there are two, sorry, I'm losing the words here, definitions of underemployment, and it's really important that we kind of look at that as well. Are there people within our area that may have retired early but would have skills that could then be utilised by others? David, I don't know if you want to come in and kind of maybe explain a wee bit more about.
Aye, so years ago when I was working managing a leader programme in Murray, one of the targets we had was underemployment, and there was two different definitions of underemployment. The most commonly used a definition was people who would who were working part-time but would be looking for full-time or non-seasonal work if possible, but because of the rurality of their area, they were struggling to get full-time. So they were underemployed because they couldn't get the employment that they wished to have. And that's common across Sutherland and has been for years. But the other definition of underemployment is the when skills that are in the community aren't being used, so they are being underemployed. So there may be, as Heather said, people who have either retired, they might have accountancy skills, they may have legal skills that could be really, really useful for small businesses, for community groups. And there are often people who have skills and don't realise it and don't have the confidence to realise it. And we were speaking about this particularly yesterday with staff from people who've worked in retail for 10 years who think they don't have skills, but they have skills. We just have to give them the confidence to realise what skills they have and then use them again. And I think the most common a version of that is when people take a career break to raise children and then struggle with their confidence getting back into the workplace, but they have so much to offer from the perspective of their life experience and their previous experience, and we have to be able to harness that and be able to get their confidence up. I think there's a lot of underemployed people in the area, and I think that maybe one of the benefits that we have from having an ageing population and a lot of people retiring here is that we have a lot of skills moving into the area, a lot of experience, a lot of particular skills that we struggle from. A lack of. So I think it's, if we can find a way to harness that and to unpick that potential and that underemployment in the areas, then that could be really beneficial to us.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, Jim.
Sorry, Richard. No, carry on.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And what Heather was saying about childcare and transport being an issue, and David echoed that as well. We're working on the transport side of things. We need to see what we can do to work on the childcare side of things, which is really, really important. People move to an area because they have access to childcare, and I think that's important. And if they choose not to, then it drives the depopulation issue even further forward. So we need to be working with childcare providers to see how we can help them to cover the area, and particularly in the remote and rural areas, which is so important. And again, yes, there are an aging population that have many skills, and we need to tap into them. And very often, people want to have something to occupy themselves with, and they don't want to just retire and do nothing. They want to actually participate in the community. So encouraging them to do that. But yes, I recognise that people might not know many people, or they might have a lack of confidence. Then that's important. But certainly getting people back to work after raising kids is really, really important too. Thanks.
Yeah, if I can mention, Richard, that the first part of your contribution there on childcare was almost a speech that you gave in the chamber yesterday, and I think you really touched on a nerve as far as I'm concerned as regards childcare after school clubs and the value that they have in allowing parents out to work and contributing to the economy. And from my own point of view, one of the problems we have is that our demographic profile is so skewed to the upper end that we don't have we continuously lose young people, and we don't have that population coming forward. And the jobs, too many of our jobs are seasonal rather than permanent, full-time, pensionable, and career jobs. But also there's the work from home aspect, which we have to consider also. Sorry, Heather, do you want to come in with anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think, as I said, our peace partnership meeting kind of went off on a little tangent yesterday, but it was covering a lot of what we would cover within the employability subgroup as well. So it was all very useful. I think we just need to keep doing what we're doing and keep working and thinking about different ways to try and get understanding of both potential employees, but also trying to think about how we can help the employers as well.
Yeah, and your over 50s jobs forum, I think, is something I hope you'd manage to pursue.
Yeah.
And one of the recent things I've heard here is that the Dornoch Station Hotel, the developers are the ones who are refurbishing, are now looking at a £17 million refurbishment, and the minimum they will pay is £15 an hour. So that must be an attractive option for different people, especially if they can make it go beyond the seasonal aspect and make these full-time permanent posts. Any other questions for Heather, please? No, okay, move on. Marianne, if you're there, homes and infrastructure, a very full report. Do you have anything to add to it, please?
Well, given that it was thrown together very last minute, there's probably not a great deal. I feel the group started really well, and we've benefited from a lot of people, you know, providing lots of information in the way of presentations, and we've in Google Drive, there's a lot of good documentation of various pieces of work that have been done. I think, what's kind of our next meeting, I think we're going to be sort of moving on from the information we got from Boyd's work he's done so far in the Northwest, because the feeling seemed to be that we'd very much like to roll that out across Sutherland and have a sort of hub type approach eventually of, you know, pulling all the information together and having a sort of pipeline approach to projects if we could do that. But, you know, there's a lot of work to be done, but I think we've started well. I must admit I haven't progressed the learning visits idea because I just really haven't had time to do that. We've got another good presentation in the next one from Forestry and Land Scotland in our next meeting, and then Ewan McLaughlin's going to speak about the housing conference that he attended last week at the following one. So the group, we've got lots to talk about, but one or two people have said to me they would quite like our group to have a face-to-face meeting, so I'm just really looking for feedback on that. I think it might be a good idea for those of us who can do that to get together in a central venue at some point, because I feel we could work through a lot of things face-to-face that are slightly more difficult online. But I'm open to agreement or not on that, whatever people feel would be best. But no, I think I don't want to just sit here and read out the updates, so no, I'm not going to say any more.
It's been forwarded for people to look at in advance. That's the whole purpose. If I could just put in, I think there's value for face-to-face, but we have a vast county. So can I perhaps suggest we could try and look at hybrid meetings if we are pushed towards getting the technology in place for hybrid meetings, so there can be people in the room and people signing in from afar. It's done very successfully in Dornoch Community Council just now, and it just means that they can get speakers from around the place and still have the core in attendance face to face. It's only a suggestion. Richard?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm just delighted to see that this tongue drop-in session is going to be held next week. I think that's really good for looking for appropriate for housing. So I think that's a positive step forward, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, that's great. I think Boyd's in the meeting here. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Boyd.
So I just dropped the link into the chat. It's just I realize it's only a 2-hour drop-in, but it's just a way to start the discussion. And also to get my email out in case people can't get to it, and then I can give more information about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Boyd. Any more questions for Marianne, or we can proceed? Okay, next on my list is Leslie Ann, emotional well-being, Southern Cares. Anything to update us with, please?
To be perfectly honest, not really an awful lot. Like Marianne.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
we've been doing an awful lot of stuff lately with the council regarding the budget and what have you. Just to say a bit of reassurance to folk about the childcare situation. I understand that this is very emotive for people and it causes a lot of stress and what have you, but none of the providers are going to be cut off immediately. There's funding in place for the next 6 months or so, and hopefully we'll be able to help people to access further funding, but it's not an immediate drop off, so there's no need for immediate panic. But you know, going forward, people will need to look further afield because there is just very little money in circulation. Basically, we had a meeting recently and the minutes were circulated again, but to be perfectly honest, I'm just finding it hard the last wee while to spend a sufficient amount of time finding out about all the different people involved in the group. So that's my sort of push for the next meeting. I'm going to meet with the lady Emma, the police who's offered to do the minutes, and look at the format of the minutes so that, well, I'm just finding it difficult to follow. I know that Yvonne knows everybody and the way that she'd set it out was perfect for her, but I think Emma and I will have a bit of a chat about how to make sure that they're updated and it's a little bit clearer for people who are not involved to understand. So I've sent Emma an email and hopefully we'll get a chance to meet shortly and move forward with that. But that's really, I've only had one meeting, so I'm just still getting my head around it, but I'll fill you in better at the next meeting, hopefully.
Thank you very much, Leslie Ann. And your reassurance as regards childcare is very welcome indeed. And I understand the pressure of business, because as I remember years ago myself, I suddenly found that there's no shallow end in the Highland Council pool. You're straight in the deep end, and it is quite a struggle to keep your head above water, I must admit. Yeah, there's a lot happening just now, particularly. Angela, you want in, please?
Yeah, can I just reassure that Leslie and that Yvonne and I are still available to offer support with the emotional wellbeing group if it is needed. And can I also come in at this point and give you an update with regard to Highland Cares, which fits within emotional wellbeing. So there is another round of funding available, and the closing date for that is on the 16th of March. It's for emotional wellbeing projects that support children, young people and their families. We've also got a training schedule around mental health and wellbeing, which I've passed on to Fiona, which will circulate with the minutes. So we've got trainings arranged in April, May and June. It's open to everybody, it's free, it's for staff, it's for volunteers, and it's in parents, carers or any interested individuals. And we've now moved, the Highland Cares project has now moved on to other areas. But it's been really great to be able to share all the good practice that's happened in Sutherland with other areas, you know, and to really showcase what's happened in Sutherland. So thank you everybody for your contribution.
Okay, thank you very much, Angela.
Thanks, Angela.
Any questions for Leslie Ann or Angela at this point? In which case we can move on to the forum updates. And I think both East and let's see, East and certainly West may be just still to have their first meetings. Is that correct, Fiona, please? East meeting will be scheduled for 12th of April. And West still have to get up and running yet. And I think we have the North Forum. Kate, are you in attendance? Anything you want to say about the North Forum? Don't think you're
here today.
Oh, that's okay. Yep, quite understand. You're busy. Everybody's busy. And the only comment from myself is I was hoping that everybody else would go first. I could just perhaps do a copy and paste on agendas, and it doesn't quite work out that way. So we had our introductory inaugural meeting with attendees from Argyll and Dora Community Councils, along with Fiona and David. And knowing as I know those who attended from Argyll, we had a delightfully cynical atmosphere, which actually allowed us to dig into the purpose of the whole forum. Discussion did come around to centre on childcare, early years childcare and after school clubs and that kind of thing, and the value that they have in allowing parents out to work, and low, rather than just homes, low cost accommodation. And Paddy Murray of Durham Community Council was looking at the idea of residential caravan parks to provide first stop accommodation for those arriving in the area or those who are just absolutely stuck for accommodation of any kind. And as we develop that into things like modular buildings, then perhaps there's an area there to explore. But basically, we need land. And I know that's work that's being done by the Northwest 2045 Partnership to find the land first of all. So anything we can bring up as regards forums, hopefully we'll get East and West underway, and the next meeting of the North, which I think the first meeting went very well. And from my own point of view, I think we're in a situation here where we are a number of things which are developing. There is the North Focus, the offshore and offshore fixed and floating wind farms on the Pentland Firth, the west of Orkney, or should it be perhaps Tang and Betty Hill, floating and fixed wind farms. And also is the Community Firth Freeport, which will perhaps have implications for the more southern parts of the county. And throughout the whole county, we have the development of the Flow Country World Heritage Site. And it's interesting to see. Now, there's been a meeting on that, but I haven't actually managed to attend that meeting, but I do have their economic appraisal to read through and to try and understand. And as I perhaps suggested, if we can, okay, Jane, I quite understand, thank you. If we actually have a look at how we can actually use things like carbon credits and so on to have a community fund arising from that, so that all the money just doesn't go to landowners, then perhaps that's another direction of travel. But since I don't understand carbon credits, I don't know if anybody does, then we'll have to see how that develops. Okay, if there's no further questions on forums, then we're on to item 7, both resilience from Angela and SACC from Dave. So Angela, all yours, please.
Thanks very much. Yep, like the other updates, there's some written updates there in the notes, so I won't go through all of it, they're fairly brief. We've probably had 2 or 3 meetings since the last full partnership discussion and the last update. Trying gradually moving from that sort of emergency reactive activities to more of a planned and sustainable approach, and looking at perhaps the community and the place as a whole, finding a sustainable level of community resilience. But as we've heard this morning, we're very much in the middle of a crisis still. Cost of living crisis means that, you know, a reactive and adaptable approach is still absolutely necessary. So I suppose the group is supporting each other on both. Recent discussions touched on community benefit funds, apprenticeship schemes and place plans, all components that might be considered as a sort of sustainable plan for the future. So again, other things we've touched on today. The next meeting is actually a face-to-face, so it's the first time we'll have got together as a group face-to-face, although of course we all know each other, but it'd be nice to get together. And we're going to go to the Kyle of Sutherland Development Trust's larder on the 28th of March. I think that invitation's been extended to the food poverty group, and I think there's about a dozen or so people going to go along to that. Purpose of that visit is just share some learning from that Kyle of Sutherland's facility, actually sort of physically experience perhaps those extra sort of positive benefits alongside the food larder, that support for food there, you know, soak up the atmosphere, you know, understand it's not only is it somewhere to find food, but you know, it's a place to meet, it's a social setting, somewhere to eat and somewhere to warm up. So it will be nice for us all to see that and experience that. But there'll also be a continuing discussion about, as I say, how we move towards more of a sort of a long-term sustainable approach to food support. And we've been considering the impact that perhaps that's having on local anchor businesses. Ways which we can work better together. And I think, Jim, you mentioned fuel vouchers, and I know there's been some good examples of that around the patch. So we'll see where that theme takes us. But for the next online meeting, which is due on the 28th of March, we've penciled in a discussion around local place plans, and Fiona Richardson from the Highland Council is hopefully going to come along and join us there. So that's probably all I wanted to say, unless there's anybody else on the call that's part of that group would like to highlight something.
Thank you very much, Angela. The resilience group has always been a parallel universe for me, and I've been unable to actually step inside to see what is actually going on apart from reading the report. So I think they'll welcome the opportunity for attending in face and our guy on the 20th or the 28th?
20th.
It's the 20th, yeah. Slight typo from Angela there, it's the 20th.
Okay, doke, right.
Sorry about that.
No, I see 20th in the papers I have in front of me, but you just mentioned the 28th there as well.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to actually perhaps think, and the concept of place plan is something that's been discussed in Doric Community Council recently, as you're well aware. But it just seems to be an expensive, or a costly exercise, and perhaps we widen the scope. I don't know. I have no inspiration or in that area at all just now. It's there's a tendency for people to be parochial and come with their own little place plans, but then perhaps there's a need for a more strategic county-wide plan to see where we go. But at the moment, I don't have stuck for ideas, I must admit.
And if I could just add to that, I was tempted whether I should or shouldn't mention local place plans, but I think perhaps to summarise that, I think perhaps we're all on a bit of a learning curve as to what they are and what they look like. So with that introduction from Fiona, then at least the resilience group will be able to ask some pertinent questions, and we can start to form a picture about how relevant they are to what we're doing. So.
Yeah, that's very good. The nearest I have a place plan is the Darnock 2013 master plan. And that has actually driven so much in Darnock over the last 10 years that you can actually see the value of what a plan can do, that having this document that you can actually hold up and say that this is what is and this is where we can go. So yeah, I welcome any progress we can make on that particular aspect. Dave, you want to come in at this point?
Yeah, just the wee update on the Southern Adaptive and Collaborative Communities project. As you mentioned earlier, Jim, our recruitment agency that we have at the Kelly Southern Development Trust has turned up trumps again, and Natalie's gone off to Ali Energy, which leaves Fiona on her own at the moment. So
Fiona's not going anywhere.
No, she's locked in that room. I just throw some food in every now and again. No, Fiona's doing a fantastic job, but we are mindful of the fact she's on her own at the moment, and there's a lot of workload, and because they got off at such a pace, there's actually quite a big expectation. I'll help out where I can, and we will help out in the background. Next week, I've had a discussion with Angela, because clearly the project at the moment is now funded by HIE. So we had a chat to see about what the parameters are, and whether we look at a like-for-like change with a full-time officer, or whether we get some admin support to offset that, so that a part-time officer can come in to help Fiona, and they can be fully concentrated on development work because somebody can do the admin in the background. We'll have a chat about that. By the end of next week, we will have a plan in place to have something advertised, and we feel that we do have to advertise it, but hopefully we'll be not far off a year's contract, so we'll see how we go. But that's where we are at the moment. Everything else seems to be going fine. There is a big workload. The new forums are clearly a learning curve for everybody, and attendance is necessary, so that's going to be challenging for Fiona, so I'll help her out where I can. And yeah, I just think it's just managing workloads. We're getting on well. We're looking at the targets. We were looking at target revision this week. I think we're still on track for everything that we set out to do. So we'll keep you updated, but hopefully we'll have a new person for Fiona to work with very, very shortly.
Thank you, David. From my own point of view, I'm very clear in my mind that if it was not for KOSDT and the SACC team, the Southern Community Partnership would be effectively neutered, and we'd be going nowhere. So I really endorse what you're doing, and I think I urge that you get up to full strength as soon as possible. Any questions for David? No, thank you. And that takes us on to the last item, which will be community matters and any other business. So Phil, all yours.
Thank you. Now, this is under item 7. The Northwest 2045 should also be under that item.
Oh, please, yes, it should be.
Off the agenda.
By the way, yes.
I have sent round a written update, so I'm not going to go through that, but it's worth just highlighting almost the point David was making. There is a process that the Northwest 2045 is going through at the moment. It has a vision, it has an idea of what needs to be achieved, but the question comes up how and particularly who will achieve it. So at the moment, the partnership is just a loose coalition of people who work together, and individual projects have been led by individual partners, which is kind of what David has been doing for the community partnership so ably, or Southern Development Trust has been doing, sorry. So the question for Northwest 2045 is how to proceed, and really the next stage, having done a recent review of what we've done so far, which includes the work that's been done very ably by Rachel Skeen on the Land Use Partnership and by Boyd with the repopulation work, is how to take other projects forward that don't necessarily have a natural lead. So we're going to have a look at whether a structure and an organisation is the way forward. There is quite a range of views, from carrying on with an arrangement where a partner takes a lead to kind of short life project groups that might coalesce around an individual project, through to a full-blown organisation. I know where I stand and I know where other people stand, and we'll be having a meeting to try and thrash all of that out. But like all organisations, we've kind of hit that point. So it'll be interesting. We'll keep you updated with how we get on, and I don't know if anyone else who's on the call who's involved with that wants to provide an update, but that's where we're at. Thank you.
I can understand the quandary. Yeah, it is a decision point where to go next. Okay, I suppose offer was kindly made. Anybody want to come in and ask any questions or make any suggestions? If not, well, it's something I'll watch with great interest. Well, definitely. Okay, in that case, it takes us to Community Matters, AOCB. Marianne, you want in there, sorry.
I'm kind of jumping back in the agenda, which maybe isn't allowed, but I thought Phil was going to say about the West Forum that there are plans afoot for it to take place on the 20th or the 27th of the month, and there's an agenda. I mean, I'm talking about it, but it's Phil and Hugh that have done all the work on it. There are plans. We're hoping that it will be face to face and possibly in Scowrie, and Phil and Hugh have got a list of people to invite. That looks good to me. So just to know it's happening. And I was kind of hoping that Northwest 2045 could be pulled into that as well. You know, that could be a good place for Northwest 2045 to be part of whatever we're doing there. I'm very interested to meet with people from Northwest 2045. I think I said before, I met with Rachel accidentally at a football match, and we did plan to meet up again and haven't done it. So I hope I can maybe get to their next meeting. The last one in Lairg I just couldn't get to, but yeah, thank you.
Good talk, Marianne, and please feel free. The agenda is yours to pick up at any point you wish. If you look on, I got Phil, David, and then Michael.
May I just quickly come back on what Marianne was saying? Yeah, sure. We'll make sure that we get you to a meeting, Marianne. Absolutely. Regarding the West Forum, I hesitated to give the dates out because I hadn't had a chance to confirm with Hugh, because Hugh was going to go off and talk to the community councils and see what they wanted and timings and things. But if it's not those dates that Marianne has mentioned, it will be in April for sure. So thank you.
Good talk, David.
Yeah, a couple of things. One of them is actually just something that's jogged, Marianne and Phil have jogged me there. I think the Northwest 2045 is an important part for the SCP as well, because it does actually cover the area of the of Allapool School, which Looking for Kids go to Allapool School, so it's quite important there. The other bit of news from there is obviously, again, our KOSDT recruitment agency is doing a good job, because Coiga Community Development Company from Atherley have just appointed Dr. Laura Hamlet, who you'll remember from the SAC team previously, as their new managing director. So again, it'd be fantastic, because Laura has such a grounding in what we were doing previously and everything we're doing. That's another great aspect that we'll be able to benefit from. The two things that I wanted to see in any other business was really to reinforce community planning, and particularly the Sutherland Community Partnership. I recently was asked, because I accidentally filled in the consultation twice and they must have thought I was really keen, but I was asked to go to the Scottish Parliament's Local Government Housing and Planning Committee, their inquiry to community planning. And it was a really interesting a couple of hours I spent there, and community planning across the rest of Scotland doesn't seem to work very well. And there was a lot of scathing remarks about how it's not functioning properly. And I had to say, well, I have a very different experience, and I talked through the process that we go through in Sutherland and the results we get. And a number of people fed in that Sutherland has a very good reputation and Sutherland does it properly. So nationally, we are recognised as doing it right. It doesn't mean we're perfect, but nationally, we are recognised as doing it right. Interestingly, though, when I saw the minute of the meeting, all the positive stuff I said was taken out, and it was all about the negative stuff. So they must be looking at reform from the perspective that things aren't working. But there was a number of people who did comment about how well Sutherland is thought of. So that's a fantastic thing, that we are being recognised for what we do. And I think, to add to that, and I've said this at a couple of meetings recently, if you look at the latest, the recent Highland Council cost of living grant scheme that went out, I think, Jim, you did a quick sort of back of the packet calculation that if we went by population, we should have been entitled to around £27,000 out of that £450,000. We actually got £68,000 for Sutherland. And that, I think, is an absolute direct result of this community planning partnership and the way that the food group, the fuel group, the resilience group spread the knowledge of the funding, but also because we work together, have a complete understanding of what community needs are and what works and what projects would be good and beneficial. So Sutherland got 250% of what it really should have got from a population percentage. That, to me, is a direct result of the Sutherland Community Planning Partnership, and we should be proud of that. So we're not perfect. We still need to keep going. We still need to get better, but we are doing a fantastic job. And I just want to thank everybody else for that. But I'm really proud of being part of this.
Thank you very much, David. That's very encouraging. Sometimes when I get doubts in my mind, it's good to hear we're actually kind of maybe doing the right things and moving forward with some purpose. Thank you. Michael, you're next. Thank you.
Yes, community matters, Jim, and note that Richard Ross from Police Scotland's there. It was through an item that I put to Richard about the amount of police problems that we've been having in the area, particularly likes of oil thefts and Nargo Cat going. So he put me on to a Graham Cameron, and we had a little chat about, well, particularly was about if we could have some CCTV cameras type thing, but this was not really thought to be the best way forward. So what we did have in discussions was, is to actually set up a morning or an afternoon whereby the police would come to one of the halls. It could be Creek or Guy or Lairg, and do something similar. You might remember Voluntary Group Sutherland did a stint where the police gave a lot of advice to elderly people on looking after property, scam calls, all this type of thing. So we would do it in a sort of like a coffee morning type style. So I've sent it off to Mary Goulder and Marion Turner, the community council contacts, and we're trying to get a date or dates together where we could perhaps run such an event, and information from the police. And then it would be a good PR exercise, I think, to even see who our policing are in Sutherland, because I've had many people saying, I never see a policeman about.
That's an absolutely excellent initiative, Michael, and perhaps I'd like to see that. I'd certainly extend that into communities in my corner in the southeast here. That would be an excellent idea, because it's oil theft as well.
Yeah.
But they get grumbles at community council, for example, in Edgerton, about unlicensed and MOT cars sitting on public roads and things like that. And it's just to get to perhaps if they're there, rather than attend a community council meeting, it's there as a kind of a drop-in session, as you say. Then
that's right.
That seems to have some purpose, but it sounds a reasonable suggestion. So I hope it may be of interest. Richard, would you like to comment on that, or perhaps staffing is a problem for you to do these kind of things?
No, so the likes of that event would actually be carried out by Preventions and Interventions Unit. So that's where the Sergeant Cameron who contacted you is based in. So that's separate to the response officers. So I can easily link in with them and ask for them to look at other dates in different areas. That's no problem.
That's very good. That's excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I think that would meet with a lot of public approval. Thank you. Anything else then? We're working between Community Matters and AOCB at the moment, and anything from around the the table around the screen that we can pick up at this point. Any residual complaints that can be made now? Or we perhaps then, since there's no hand showing, then we can move on to the final concluding part, the date of the next meeting, which I think we have a full meeting on the 2nd of June. Summer beckons, and Friday, 19th of May is the pre-meet, by which time I hope my lambing will be finished, and well, life will open up again. So if these dates are quite satisfactory, we'll go with them. And in that case, I can only thank you very much for your attendance and contributions. I think it's been a very purposeful and beneficial meeting, and it's good to know what is happening all around the place. And I got a couple of extra dates for my diary as regards resilience and other matters. So, well, thank you very much, everybody. And I think we're well within the 2-hour schedule, and I hope that's not down to my incompetence. So thank you very much, and we'll see you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jim.
Jim.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Jim.